Welcome, everyone, to our webinar this afternoon on talking about the Principled Academy Initiative and Women's Federation for World Peace Japan on implementing the Character Education Initiative. This afternoon, we want to give you optimal time to talk about a bit how to teach it, some of your successes, any questions or problems or challenges you have, and how to move forward. This is to emphasize how to better implement the Character Ed program in your school and teaching. So we wanted to leave this time today to be very straightforward, but also helpful for you individually. We have several teachers in from different schools in Belize, as well as in the US and other international locations. And we hope this will be an effective session for you this afternoon. I am your MC. My name is Dr. Kathy Winings. I am the president of Educare, which is a consulting firm agency that deals with all levels of schooling, and also a developer of Character Ed materials and a longtime curriculum developer. We will have our first session. Number one will be a general introduction for those who are new to us, new to this program. And that will be offered by Alan Saunders. Alan is, besides a good friend of mine, is the president and CEO of Saunders Consultancy. He is also an educational advisor and consultant for several organizations, including UNESCO, Center for Global Education, the Center for Leadership and Character Education, and the Principled Academy Initiative. He is the chairman emeritus for the Conference of NGOs, Congo, on HIV/AIDS for organizations with consultative status with UNESCO, with ECOSOC, and the Economic and Social Council at the United Nations, New York City. So without further ado, I want to invite Alan to begin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Winings. Yeah, this afternoon we'll be talking about the Character Education Initiative, which is a project of several different organizations, the Principled Academy Institute that you'll be hearing about from Isaac Durst and Poppy Ritchie this morning, Women's Federation for World Peace in Japan. We have some of the volunteers on there that are very generous with their support, both economically and in many other ways. And also Mrs. Barbara Arrington has been a key support of the program in Belize from the Samuel Haynes Institute for Excellence, where we've done several seminars. So to begin with then, what is Character Education Initiative? To start, what is character education according to Dr. Thomas Lacona, who's the grandfather of character education, wrote the book Educating for Character. It is a deliberate effort to help people understand, care about, and act upon core ethical values. It is also the conscious effort then to instill virtues in students especially, and young people. It's broken up into several areas: to know the good, to care about the good, and to do the good. But the focus of our program isn't as much on the intellectual level, but more on what we call the social and emotional level, how people can develop better relationships. Why do we need character education? There is so many different reasons for that. High divorce rates, particularly here in the States, but around the world. Premarital sexual relationships, alienation from traditional values, and I'll talk about that a little bit more this afternoon in my presentation in the second session. which then leads to an alienation of youth from society. And young people who don't know where they're going uh, get very, very confused. And there's a huge issue now with maturity rates. Young people in the States and Australia and in many developing countries are not maturing somewhere from 25 to 35 years of age. And in some countries, they're even still living in their parents' basement at 40 years of age. So we want to be able to help young people from a very young age be able to understand their purpose and identity. We have rising suicide rates that are going up over the world. And this is based on a lot of different issues, teen pregnancy, rising pregnancy rates, but also drug abuse and alcohol abuse. In the States here, we have last year over 100,000 deaths of despair, suicide, and drug abuse overdoses. That's more than the whole of the 7 years of the Vietnam War. So we want to be able to really help young people understand who they are and not be able to deal with their problems by using alcohol, drugs, and other things, and also unwholesome entertainment influences. So we want to be able to move forward and help them have a broader understanding of, again, who they are, where they're going, and how that they can get there. We'll be talking about that today, and I just wanted to give a very brief introduction into that, and I wanted to read a story to you from a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's a kind of stories that we utilize when we're teaching character education, because again, the goal is to get to the social, emotional, or what some people may call a heartistic level, how we can get beyond the cognitive level, because we don't want to just focus on that level, even though that's very important, but we want to really be able to help them develop good communication skills. So reading from his book, one of the stories, a poor Scottish farmer named Fleming heard a cry for help coming from a nearby bog. He dropped his tools and ran to it. There, mired up to his waist in black muck, was a terrified boy, screaming and trying to free himself. Farmer Fleming saved the child from what could have been a slow and horrible death. On the following day, a carriage pulled up to the Scotsman's sparse surroundings. An elegantly dressed nobleman stepped out and introduced himself as the father of the boy Farmer Fleming had saved. "I want to repay you," said the nobleman. "You saved my son's life." "No, I can't accept for what I did," the Scotsman replied, waving off the offer. At that moment, the farmer's son came to the door of the family hovel. "Is that your son?" the nobleman asked. "Yes," the farmer replied. "I'll make you a deal. Let me provide him with the level of education that my son will enjoy. If the lad is anything like you, his father, he'll no doubt grow to be a man we both will be proud of." And that he did. Farmer Fleming's son attended the very best schools and in time graduated from St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, London University, and went on to become known throughout the world as the noted Sir Alexander Fleming, the man who discovered penicillin. Years afterward, the same nobleman's son who was saved from the bog was stricken with pneumonia. What saved his life? This time, penicillin. The name of the nobleman, Lord Randolph Churchill, his son's name, Winston Churchill. So those are the kinds of stories that we tell while we're doing character education. And our goal of when we do it is to try and connect with local cultures. And we have many teachers on here. We have a very broad group from not only from Belize, but also from Canada. And we have a very good friend, Jean Gomsey from South Africa, whom I've worked with for several decades, an excellent teacher and professor. So we'll have plenty of time for discussion today, as Dr. Wining said, and I will conclude with my remarks for there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, our first presentation this afternoon is going to be by Principal Jamal Campbell and a group of teachers from the school, Andrea Gentle, Dalia Rivero, and Janet Pandy. And they're going to be able to talk about the Character Education Initiative at the Trinity Methodist School there in Belize City, in Belize. Jamal Campbell, besides being the principal of Trinity Methodist School, has for the past 5 years, he has also been a teacher for over 20 years. He is passionate about ensuring others experience their full potential. And apart from teaching, he enjoys photography and carpentry, and he has a 7-year-old son. So, Mr. Campbell, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So what we've been doing at Trinity, for the past 2 years, we have worked with our local manager, Mrs. Arrington, to incorporate character education in our teaching. Virtues have always been a part of what the ministry requires. And so last year, we jumped on board around October to start teaching it from the character education books. As we progress, we've had training from you guys, and we progressed quite a bit. But this year, the ministry now embed religion along with leadership as a part of their curriculum requirement. So what the ministry did was revitalize its curriculum, and as such incorporated religion and leadership as one. And that therein lies where virtues came in. And from the ministry's curriculum, they have virtues as doing what is right and good is important to social cohesion and building a democratic society. And it goes on to further list much more that they require. But virtues is where it comes in. And so as a school, what we've done is that we've ensured that with the religion and the leadership, each of our low and middle classes have 2 sessions per week. And so and our upper classes have 3 sessions per week. So teachers have to juggle between their religion and the leadership class, but they must incorporate it as such. And while the ministry came out with a document for only the lower classes, all the other classes must now, we rely on the character education document to teach. And even the lower classes still use the document to teach the character values, the character education and such. So we have been incorporating it quite a bit in our teaching. And of course, as we go on, we'll hear from Teacher Dalia and Teacher Gentle right now. They will tell you more precisely as to some of the lessons that they've incorporated this week. So that is what we're doing as a school. So thank you very much.
Okay, we have 3 teachers who have joined us. Janet Pandy, who is a counselor at the high school level. Dalia Rivero, who's a veteran teacher at the middle school level. And Andrea Gentle, who is a teacher who's taught at all levels in the primary school and is currently a 1st grade teacher. She's also the author of 4 books to date, 2 of which she will be launching in the coming weeks. Ms. Gentle enjoys being a teacher and always welcomes the opportunity to become more involved in humanitarian work. So teachers, go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dalia. Don't know if I have on my video. Trying to get it on. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I want to share the implementing of the character education concept from, I would say, the teacher's perspective. So the character education concept was first introduced to our school, Trinity Primary School, here in Belize City, a little over 2 years ago. Since our school is denomination-based, there has always been a session in our timetable for scripture lessons. There's also a 45-minute session, 4 days a week, set aside for our devotion. Once weekly, there is an hour in the morning where the student body assemble in the church building, which is right across from our school. There is always a Bible reading presented, which leads to a short sermon, most times from the bishop. With that said, the integration of the character virtues into lessons is not unfamiliar to us at Trinity School. Students are also aware that they are attending a Christian-based school. Their attire is a uniform. On special occasions, allowance is made for casual wear. So what I'm trying to point out here is that our school has an atmosphere of promoting and instilling virtues similar to Christ's teachings from inception. The students are also given leadership roles and responsibilities, which lend to good character building. How do we monitor the progression or lack of progression of our students? We at Trinity, we have several occasions where students must display what they have learned. Class rules, for example, focus on positive consequences. So we have structure. There's a structured procedure students are encouraged to follow. Our other procedures include their behavior and their attitudes toward the buzzer. We have a buzzer, and there is more than one ringing of this buzzer at selected times of the day to indicate how they move to their respective classes, what is their behavior towards each other, how they treat each other when they are lining up. You know, their actions, their behavior are being monitored. Teachers are present at the door at all times to ensure that students adhere to our procedures. We have the ringing of the bell for break time, which is recess, for when lunch is to occur, and coming back in after lunch. So what we do, we also have been able to develop rubrics, to develop checklists, to monitor how students react, how students behave, how students improve. Looking at the lessons in the Discovering the Real Me, we have found all of the lessons that relate to exactly what we are trying to do to improve the behavior and the attitudes of our students. One of our challenges is bullying. It doesn't happen on a large scale, but it happens nevertheless. So we spend a lot of time with our observation checklist to monitor our students again and how they relate to each other, how they relate to the different cultures that our students come with, because we are diverse. And so we do not have just one culture of students in our school. We have our observance and our respect for our culture with several activities. So the use of the book to enhance what we are already doing is progressing, and for us it is happening. Overall, our teachers and students, we have discussed the lessons. We find the stories to be interesting, to be vibrant and diverse, because it doesn't only focus on one culture of people, but on various. We see stories with Chinese students, we see stories with African American children. So we are relating the stories to our children and to the culture here in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Andrea, go ahead.
Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Pardon me if I may need to I might need to close my mic and camera if I get because I'm very much under the weather. Just to add, my colleague put it together so aptly and quite loaded. Just to draw or to add the character education, we are seeing it working in strides. As she said, we are using the books, the materials, and the children are receptive to the materials being shared or taught to them. Just to draw, my co-teacher, she the story, The Tiger in Me, what they're to take from that is to you know, like keeping a calm attitude. So you know, of course it's figurative, and the children, when they hear The Tiger in Me, they're basically imagining an actual tiger or the animal. So we work ways around. Of course, the story brings it home, but sorry, we break it down further for them to actually to feel, to identify with it, and maybe to be a part. Maybe perhaps it jogs a memory of something when they became something that had caused them to become angry at some point in time. So yes, we have been using the materials and teaching the virtues, and it's a golden opportunity for us to to instill values and to shape better characters in our school and families, because we're expecting that this will impact the children, and of course the children, each child or families. In some instances, some households they have several children attending our school there at Trinity. So you know, they get to impact. We're hoping that they get to impact all the siblings, even their parents, by you know, how they're doing and how their characters are being shaped. So yes, that's just a bit about the character education and how I see it working for us and how we're working with it as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, Jamal Campbell, for bringing your representative teachers from Trinity Methodist. You've heard mention the book, Discovering the Real Me textbook. This has been the center point of the curriculum, has much of the content in it. So in Discovering Real Me, textbook number 1, there is we want to give you a highlight of one of the stories and ideas on teaching character education and dealing with challenges at the elementary school level and activities that highlight internalizing the virtue that is being highlighted. And this is going to be done by Mrs. Poppy Ritchie. She's going to focus on the story called The Ants and the Grasshopper. And just a little bit background from Poppy. She lives in Colorado, which is nice and cold right about now, with her husband, Jim, and dog, Roxy. They have 3 adult children and one, as she calls it, very cute grandchild. Who lives nearby. For 25 years, Poppy has enjoyed a career in teaching and doing administrative work at the Principal Academy in the Bay Area. It's a character education school in Northern California. Her specialty is early education, early childhood, up through 3rd grade. Now she is working as a freelance writer, writing articles, magazine articles, and curricula for the character education website that we will introduce to you shortly. She works on discovering the real me, grades K through 12 curriculum, and trained teachers to use this resource in the schools throughout the US and other places. She especially enjoys working with the presenters of this workshop and with teachers and administrators in Belize, putting on workshops and like this one and others to support the teaching of character education. Poppy, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Kathy. And thank you for Dahlia and Andrea and Jamal for your presentations about the work that you're doing in Belize. In my presentation this morning, I'd like to start out by honoring all you teachers and administrators out there. This may seem repetitious because I do this every time I have a chance to, because you all deserve to be honored. Teachers have such a complex and amazingly difficult job description. And when people ask me about my occupation, and I replied that I was a teacher for 25 years, I often hear the response, I could never do that, not in a million years. The expectations are so high for teachers. Families rely on us not only to raise their children academically, we are the second parents for several hours, 5 days a week, year after year. Thus, we become adjunct parents expected to unconditionally love these kids as if they were our own and train them so they become emotionally mature and conduct themselves well in society. I have to admit that there were some days that I questioned my sanity in choosing this profession, and I knew that I could only get through those difficult days with lots of prayer on my 10-minute drive to school. I prayed for each student, prayed for myself and my fellow teachers, hoping to get divine support for a successful day. In retrospect, I'm so grateful for my time in the classroom, and I want to support educators in every way I can, because you are so important to the future citizens of this world. For those of you who don't know me, I have been involved in character education since 1990, when I first started teaching at the Principled Academy. This school was the result of several families who were concerned about the lack of school choices in our area. It was quite a project, as none of us had actual experience building a school from scratch. With a lot of hard work and training, the school evolved as a preschool through 8th grade academy. Teachers at the Principled Academy were always looking for curricula to use with our students that would help us teach about virtues. In 1996, I was asked to write for the Discovering the Real Me K through 12 series, which many of you are already using. Alan Saunders' wife, June, and I wrote the student story-based textbooks and teacher manuals for the K through 4th grade levels, and I use them regularly in my classroom. After the books were published, I worked with Alan Saunders and others to train teachers to use them internationally in St. Lucia, Micronesia, and Zambia. Wherever we went, the response was always very enthusiastic on the part of the ministers of education, school administrators, teachers, parents, and students, just like in Belize. We found that the virtues and even some of the stories were universal, and everyone could identify with the message of every story. As we read the stories together with the teachers, I could see them nodding their heads in agreement, as if saying, yes, that is what I find to be true. At the same time, every country has its own identity and culture, so we tried our best to adapt our workshops to the culture we were in, using examples and having activities that fit with the people in that area. We have most recently been working with teachers and administrators in beautiful Belize. Since you Belizean educators are already involved using character education materials, I'd like to address some of the challenges we faced when we decided to create a character education school. The initial training our staff received was based on the work of Thomas Lacona that Alan referred to in his speech, who is we learned that everyone involved in a character education school, students, teachers, families, and support staff, need education about the implementation of virtues at the school, and consequently at home and in the community. If the families weren't aware of our objectives, the efforts at school would be lost. How did we meet that challenge? When parents enrolled their children, they had to agree to our emphasis on training children to embrace these virtues, and they were required to contribute volunteer hours at the school. We wanted them to come and see for themselves what character education looks like in practice. We invited them to come whenever they had time to our daily morning assembly, in which teachers took turns reading a story that emphasized the virtue of the month. We borrowed from the Virtue of the Month curriculum and made sure everyone at the school was aware of the monthly virtue, and school activities and service learning projects aligned with that virtue. A monthly newsletter was sent out to families with featured articles from teachers about what they did with their students to help them understand the virtue of the month. We had parent-teacher conferences 3 times a year in which we went over the report card and talked about growth and concerns regarding behavior and academics. Parents were notified immediately if there was any kind of incident or serious incident or chronic concerning behavior. This infrastructure developed over a period of time, over years, and there were lots of challenges along the way. Teachers were expected to be role models and consistently demonstrate good behavior in front of the class and with everyone that had anything to do with the school. Of course, this is true for all teachers in all schools, but even more so at a character education school. In order to meet this challenge, I had to improve my self-care skills. I had to make sure I experienced happiness on the job. I realized I had to come to school not with my own neediness, but with enthusiasm and a healthy attitude. My job at school motivated me to do my homework, and that is learn how to take better care of myself so I could become a better role model. We also had to model good relationships with other staff members and the families of our students. I have to admit that sometimes I had to really work on not being annoyed by another's behavior. None of us are perfect, I tell myself, and I have imperfections too that annoy others. How can I talk about virtues when I'm not living a virtuous life in my relationships on the job? Am I using I statements to communicate my concerns politely? Am I catching myself when I want to gossip about staff members or parents? Am I working on difficulties in my relationships, taking responsibility for my part in the conflict? I had to frequently assess myself and go back to the drawing board to improve my relationship skills. Another challenge for me and other teachers was scheduling the character education lessons. In order to insert character education lessons into the academic schedule, teachers had to be super creative. I often use the books, the Discovering the Real Me books to teach literacy, reading comprehension, vocabulary, and oral skills. I gave writing assignments about the lessons to the stories. Some of the stories worked well with academic subjects like science, geography, and history. An example of this is the Discovering the Real Me story about the ant and the grasshopper, which is a great introduction to the value of cooperation and includes a science lesson about ants. Okay, so I'll go into this story right now. And as Alan is bringing up the story, this is okay, so this is it, chapter 11, The Ant and the Dove, and this is in book 1 of the series. Okay, scroll down from here. Do I scroll? Okay, there we go. So this story might be familiar to you teachers from Belize. You might have already used it. The story is about a dove that rescues an ant from drowning. And later on, the ant rescues the dove from a rock-throwing child by biting the boy on the toe. The ant and the dove express their gratitude and promise to always watch out for each other. And the cognitive objectives of this is that we hope students will understand the value of kindness and cooperation, and they will understand the golden rule, which is when they are kind, others will be kind to them. And hopefully students will feel relieved that both the ant and the dove escaped danger, understanding that it was because of kindness that they survived. And behavioral objectives, seeing how kindness can benefit them and other students will choose to be kind to others and help others when they need it. And students can learn how to recite the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What you give comes back to you, the law of karma. And an activity, the teacher can explain, and this is where you can bring in science, a science lesson. I really love to teach science to my students. You can explain that ants work together very well, helping each other. So I often, when I taught this story, I would connect it with the science lesson on the activities of ants and how what their jobs are, what their roles are, how they work together, how they cooperate, how they each have some ants are guard ants, some are queen ants, and some are nurse ants. It's very fascinating to kids, and it also helps them to go deeper into the virtue, the action of cooperation. And okay, so this is another story. We're not going to go into the grasshopper and the ants, but it's similar in the sense that you can introduce science lessons along with that story. Another challenge we all faced was figuring out and I think one of the teachers was expressing this, figuring out if our students were gaining something from our efforts to grow good character. I realized that the only way I could really find out, other than through my own observations, was to have small group meetings. I made a boys group and a girls group and asked the kids to talk about how they're doing. At first, they were shy, but it didn't take long for them to open up. Sometimes there were conflicts I didn't know about until it was brought up at the meeting. And sometimes the kids would come up to me and say, I think we need a meeting because there's a problem. When I was in Micronesia to train teachers about using the Discovering the Real Me books, I encouraged them to do more of these small group meetings and pair shares to get their students to open up and talk honestly. Most teachers were not used to this there in Micronesia, and it took a lot to convince them that it would help them develop more trust and friendliness among the students and between students and the teachers. An ongoing struggle for character education teachers is how can we help our students absorb the virtues in these stories to the point at which we could actually see results? In other words, how do we get optimal effectiveness out of our efforts to guide children in the development of good character? So to answer this, we addressed this in the design of the curricula for Discovering the Real Me and in our new Values and Virtues online curricula. Both include guiding questions that help students dig deeper into the meaning of the virtue and how to practice it. So at this point, I'd like to pass the microphone to Isaac Durst so he can share a little bit about our new curriculum and how this responds to the need for going deeper with the virtues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you just for the honor of being here. I know it's Saturday. Some people are tired. Some people are not feeling that great. Some people want to go outside, go for a walk. or maybe just take a nap. We're all here, so thank you so much for being here. Thank you for inviting me. I've been involved with education for a while. I guess in the beginning, I fell in love with English literature, and then later on, kind of East Asian studies, and then just teaching, because I had an opportunity to teach in South Korea. And eventually, from 1999 to 2016, I was actually an edutainer. So there's education, and tainer, the entertainers, kind of a mix. So I was more like, I don't know, a mix of in the States, we have PBS is a public broadcasting systems. We had EBS was educational broadcasting. So kind of making education, which can be a little boring, try to make it more exciting. And of course, I love stories. And so how can stories, good stories with good questions, maybe influence kids to make good choices? Because we're always talking about choices, please make good choices, use good words, be kind to each other. Of course, we try to model it, but having good stories, but not just good stories, but good questions, open-ended questions that are good thought questions. So we've heard about some good stories, but then, of course, as teachers, we kind of know, oh, well, that guy did a good thing, and therefore he was able to save this person who made huge, amazing decisions for the world. But kids don't automatically connect the dots. So they need good questions, and they need to have that good give and take. And as a person who has, in the last 7 years, served servers, so my job as a head of the school, the principal of the academy, was to serve the teachers, the worship teachers, the worship parents, especially moms, and mom teachers are even doubly amazing. But how can we make their lives easier? Wanted to come up with a resource where, of course, this smartphone is what most people spend their time on, especially kids. And so teachers can use it too as a good resource. Or, of course, their classroom, computer, whatever. But wanted to make a resource that could easily be upgraded, easily be changed. I've been involved with books. It's not always easy to fix something and then reprint the book, but you can do it very easily with the digital education. So if I can share my screen for a minute, I want to show you our site that we've been working on. Actually, I'm going to put it in the chat as well. Let's see if this works. It's in the chat. It's valuesandvirtues.org. It's a website. And the idea before we go there is that there are 12 virtues, ideally a virtue a month. That's what we did at the school. Different grades, different levels, different books, different activities, different questions that are age appropriate, grammar appropriate, etc. But ideally there are 12. Right now we have 8 virtues and different levels. I want to have more, but we have 3 right now, 3 levels: first and second grade, third and fourth, fifth and sixth. And we want to have younger and older and differentiate, but we're trying to make it very diverse, very inclusive. And right now the main focus is books. Activities are not there yet, but you'll see each level and each section. I'll give you a tour, has 4 stories and companion content. That's the key. So most excellent books are read somewhere on YouTube. There's usually a link. You can just watch it with the kids or have someone read it to the kids. And then when you come back, you have the companion content. So let me give you a little bit of a tour. Okay, I will share my screen. Hang on a sec, folks. Oh, let me do one more time, because just in case we need the audio. Thank you. Share sound. Up my video. Yay. Hopefully everybody can see. That is what it looks like. And we have our main home here, and then the virtues. So cooperation, respect, gratitude, compassion. You can choose any one you want. On your phone or on your computer, let's go to maybe a courage. And you can see there are 3 different levels. I'm going to choose 5 and 6. Many great stories. You can, like I said, go to the story. Most stories will have a link. If you press this, it'll go to YouTube and someone will read the story. We don't want to focus on that so much. It's a great story, but the companion content. This is our special sauce. Summary of the story. Malayla is a world-famous young woman activist from Pakistan. When she was school age, she had big goals to become a doctor. Those dreams were tragically interrupted when extremists gained control of the government. And it continues. What are the objectives of the lesson? And then some great questions. So about the story. How did Malayla's father encourage her? You can see number 2. And then also, it encourages the kids. Look at number 9 for a moment. Have you ever given a speech or report in front of a group? What was your speech about? And were you nervous? See how towards the end it really gives, ask questions that are more, not just about the story, but about the kids. They can share their experience because kids have lots of experience and they need to connect the dots. And they need to feel, yeah, that's not just about them, it's about me. This virtue is actually something that I can relate to. And so ideally, everybody's on the same page in the whole school, the same theme for the month, gratitude, kindness, some of the virtues that we see on the website. So my goal, our goal in the valuesandvirtues.org, and hopefully it's a resource you can use, is that it just makes your life easier to inspire the kids, because so much is like weight on the teacher's shoulders. Atlas, please just take care of my kid. I got to work. See you later. So is my kid okay? You didn't take care of my kid? Hey, it's your problem. Just take care of my kid. I'll see you later. But we want to make sure that the families, the communities, and the school are on the same page. And so this resource can be used at home. Grandparents, coaches, parents, teachers, all on the same page. And ideally, it makes a big difference. Good stories, good lessons, good kids. Goodbye. I'm done.
Thank you very much, both Poppy and Isaac. Just to give you all a little background about Isaac, his own father has been a writer and developer of character ed materials, Dr. Mose Durst. Isaac received his bachelor's in English at UC Berkeley and then went on to get a master's in arts and East Asian studies while working and living in South Korea. He has been, since 1997, involved with education, both in South Korea from 2000 forward, but in 2016, he became the head of the school at the Principal Academy. So he's worked with this quite a bit. All right, thank you. So what we want to do is give you time for questions. So we have about 10 minutes for a question and answers. If you can, I'm trying to get into this here. If you can send us some questions, let us know you have a question and which speaker you would like to talk to, send your question to. The floor is open for Q&A. And this is before we go to our group work. Okay. Put your hand up electronically or put it in the chat. I am monitoring the chat.
If no one has a question, I was wondering, it's always about the practical. How do I use this? Is it in between a class? Is it something that's used during a class, like an English class, language arts class? Is it something that takes up half an hour or an hour, or is it something that takes a short amount of time? In our school, we had, honestly, about 15 minutes to really read a story and talk about it because the kids are putting on the backpacks and getting lunch. And it was the first, we called it morning meeting before the first math class. I'm just curious how teachers are using it in their school.
And we'll also have a chance in the group discussion, Isaac, for those points. Any questions that you wish to raise from our speakers? I'm going to call it once.
Hello.
Yes.
You specifically asked to raise a hand, but somehow I cannot find that to raise the
Okay.
hand.
All right.
So,
Your question?
Pardon.
Yes.
yes, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Recalling about 2 Fridays ago, I think the meeting was held on the 3rd, and I had asked, I threw out the thought of, here is the question: how much can we expect in terms of, I had thrown out the idea of like, so now we are merely, in our class, we're merely telling the stories, right, to the first graders, but we put, with a little gusto, and we personalize it because we already know the story, and we want to bring it across like as lively as possible. But how much more can we ask for in that the realia? Like I recall using the example of, we tell a story of maybe Little Red Riding Hood, just a story that is very familiar. And so we might just do it orally, like tell the story and share it, and like even with expression and all that, but can we expect to maybe get like puppets, like I don't have the word, but like materials to go along with the story? Again, like I say, it would take time. It won't be next month. It maybe won't be by the start of next year, but as we immerse in the program and become more familiar with the stories, more comfortable, like what maybe we start generating ideas of what materials we can pull to relate a story. How much more can we ask for? What exactly are we thinking? Where are we going exactly with the program?
Poppy, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I agree with you that dramatizing the story is the most fun of any activities that I've done with these stories. And it'd be great if you can get someone to create boxes of materials. Maybe a parent could do that, or it's hard for teachers to get the time to do that. Or even kids could make their own puppets out of paper bags. I've done that before. But I love that idea of having them available so that you can just dramatize one of the stories. Is that what you mean, Andrea?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, in short words, yes, that's basically my question, what you answered there. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you're looking for how to raise your hand electronically, go to the bottom of your screen where it says reactions. Click on reactions and it gives you the opportunity to raise your hand.
Also, I think, Dr. Winings, what we can do is work with some of the educators here in the States to help create some of the props and even have them sent down to Belize. Mika Deschatel, for instance, works up in one of the schools in Connecticut. We have other educators in different parts of the country. So I'm sure we can work with some of the different groups around the States and help, and even some of the parent groups. So I think that's a project that the Principal Academy Institute can take on.
Yes, it's a great parent project. I have used marionettes before. I've used hand puppets. I've created my own. They're not terribly difficult to make. And they do help tell the story, especially the younger the students. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to call the time, and it gives us more time then for group discussion. We're approaching our first group discussion time. This is an opportunity in these smaller groups for each participant to talk about the presentations, what they thought of them, the challenges they're having in their classroom, school, or actions, and then action steps. This will be the focus of our 2 group sessions. So please use the time effectively in your group sessions to talk about what you thought of the presentations. Did it answer your questions? And what challenges do you have that still remain unanswered, that in terms of implementing and teaching this material in your own classroom and school? All right. So, okay. Good. All right. Thank you. I hope you had a productive group discussion time. So we're going to roll on with session 2. We will have a brief update on the implementation of the program at the high school level by Jeanette Pandy, and also talking about its usage as well within Belize. Janet is a counselor at the high school level, and then Barbara Ellington is the principal of the Samuel Haynes Institute for Excellence in Belize, and an educational consultant, and has worked quite closely with this program. So I leave it up to both of you.
Barbara's not here.
Oh, Barbara's not in.
Not in now. Okay, then go ahead, Jeanette.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just one small correction there, Katie. I'm the business teacher, but
Oh, yes.
I do work with the school counselor in sharing what we have learned about character building. I have had the opportunity to attend the workshop that they had in Belize City when I was first exposed to what the team is working with. So thereafter, I found the information very helpful, very interesting, and of course is needed not only at the primary level, at which I thought the workshop was all about, but also at the high school level. Unfortunately, there was one of the Discover Me textbook that taught that would be able to help the students at our schools. That would be those in what we refer to as first form. I guess you refer to that as 9th or 10th grade. So I do not teach those students. I do not work with them personally, but the school counselor does through the subject life skills. Hence, I went to the vice principal, who is in charge of academics, to tell her about the program and shared the book with her, the books that is, with her. And so she called in the school counselor, and we did make a presentation of the books. Before I play a recording of what the school counselor made, I just want to share that when I attended the workshop over the summer holiday, one of the things that got to me, or that resonated, was when we talk about in character building and personal leadership, we're looking, being a successful leader. I thought of the part where we spoke about being a good role model. And as teachers in the classroom, I have learned that for some years. First, before I did not have the understanding, but after so many years of teaching, 22 years in the classroom, it's important that as teachers, we are indeed role model. And I just want to reiterate what Poppy made mention of in her presentation earlier. We spend so many time with the students. We have them 5 times a week, approximately for 8 hours. So these students look up to us as teachers. And so in our teachings, in our interactions with them, we need to be role model, positive role models, because so many of them, of our students in our school, some of them come from an environment where they're not seeing those proper behavior, where they're not seeing the virtues being practiced. And it's not that these kids would not be able to do that, it's because they don't know what these are. So if they're not finding it at home, then it is then our responsibility in school for us to be the one to show the positive behavior for these children to learn from. So that is something that stood out during that workshop and something I need to keep on carrying to other teachers as we are in the classroom. So at this moment, I'm going to play the recording from our school counselor. Her name is Anahi Kano. She teaches life skill. Anahi graduated from Judson University there in the United States with her degree in psychology. She has been working with our school now for 2 years. So here she is sharing her thoughts of the books.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Anahi Kano. I am the school counselor at Tuluti High School. Miss Sunny was really generous and kind and helpful with giving me the Discovering Your Real Me student book and teacher's guide. I was sharing with her how both books have been really helpful with our students in regards to several aspects of, integrating that into life skills classes. As school counselor, I also get to teach first farm students and second farm students life skills. So it has been really helpful to have a guide that I can use when it comes to providing the necessary lessons for the students to learn different skills and different aspects, especially since this past year here in our country, we're trying to move from normal teaching lessons to competency based. So it has been a challenge to actually have to change certain topics and be able to be more intentional about providing our girls, our students, the necessary lessons that would actually equip them for not only high school, but after they leave high school into college and later on in life. I was sharing that one of the best things I have been able to realize while using books is that they really truly help me with creating assessments that tackle the necessary skills they need. That is putting together the social emotional learning part into having the girls do practical work that will actually be more catered or intentional when it comes to them learning what they need. I have realized one of those things, especially with our first year students, is that they easily lose focus in class, and life skills being a general topic, they expect it to be more about just having fun or learning just about emotions or learning just about counseling or certain areas. But the assessments and those lessons have helped me to be more open to providing, activities in class and helping the students actually learn about themselves, learning about what they like, the things that they can use for later on in life. So I have really enjoyed being able to learn from it as well, because there are things that I can relate back to my career, which is like psychology. So I love that all those books can help our girls, our students to be more aware of who they are and to use that into everything they apply. That's academics, their career, their families. So I'm really grateful for it, and I hope that it continues to help me this whole year with whatever we need to provide for them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, and our next session, and just to let everyone, to remind everyone, after Alan's presentation, we will have question and answer again. So if please think of your questions, put them in the chat area. You may also be able to raise your hand, but think about that, and then we'll have a final group discussion. So Alan is going to talk about classroom management issues and those tougher topics that, you know, teachers just love to talk about. Classroom management, dealing with challenges of teachers at the higher levels, such as high school. So again, it's by Alan Saunders. Take it away, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Winings. Yeah, just as a follow-up to Janet Pandy's presentation, yeah, the challenges of teachers are pretty universal from my experience here in the States, in Australia, Western Europe. A lot of times when I'm in the Caribbean and Central America, teachers feel, well, we have challenging family situations and therefore teaching is really difficult. It's definitely true here. Kathy taught in the New York City school system. I've taught in the urban areas of New Jersey, down here in North Carolina. And it's interesting to me that research shows that 95% of families here in the States and Western Europe, Australia, are dysfunctional. So when children come into the classroom, particularly from the urban areas where a lot of times it's a very high 85 to 90% of children are from single parents. So they're coming into the classroom not necessarily having the love and attention that they need at home. And then the teacher has to become the moral example for them, as Janet mentioned. So that's part of the big challenge. And what I did in teaching some of those students at in the Patterson School District in New Jersey was I used a program on classroom management, and that showed me how I could use students who were challenged as per needing a lot of attention, and then I would use some of those students who were the worst behaved as eventually as class captains or as role models themselves, giving them enough attention, giving them responsibility, and then asking them to take responsibility for the class. And it worked really, really well, because one thing I learned, the worst behaved students are actually have certain kinds of skills, and some of the skills they have are their social emotional skills, but also their interpersonal communication skills. So I worked with those students to become class leaders, and they knew how to control the class. They had the social skills to control the class, as opposed to maybe the students who were really smart or the quiet students. And it worked very well. Another thing I used in classroom management was I wasn't afraid to send students to another classroom or put them in a place removed from the other students. And even if you do that for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they always want to come back in with their peers. So that's another thing that we can do when students are climbing the walls and are a little bit more challenged. So I want to talk a little bit about the program as per from what we've used. This particular one is grade 9, which I think would be Form 1 for you teachers there. It gives balanced education, teaching methods, course requirements, expectations, and icebreakers. Again, we're focused on to know the good, to care about the good, and to do the good. And I often ask when I give these types of presentations, which is most important. And obviously all three are important, but we want to focus on being able to know the good, to help the cognitive, but that's where most of the focus of education goes. And the advantage I see in developing countries and even in the urban areas here of the US is that there is more of a connection on the social emotional level. And particularly you have an advantage in the schools in Belize, especially doing religious or spiritual education, and then also being able to do service learning programs. So again, we want to be able to work with all three levels of the cognitive, affective, and behavioral. This particular chapter looks at who am I? And young people today really struggle with their identity. They're not sure who they are or where they're going. And again, a lot of times families are fairly dysfunctional. So the teacher needs to become a role model. And there's research out there to show that young people need 5 good role models. One of them can be maybe a youth minister, they could be a sports coach, but a lot of times it becomes a teacher. And if the teacher has that consistency, as Poppy was talking about, and as Janet and Andrea and Dalia were talking about, they can then become the person that can guide these young people to become more successful. So understanding who I am, then we want to be able to help them look at both the inner and the outer forms, the invisible and the visible, or the metaphysical, and be able to help them guide not only towards external success. One story in the lecture there in the book goes into the Piano Man, and Eric is a geek, or he's really talented and maybe not looked at as the average young person. But some of the students then can realize, because of his gifts, that he has something special internally. So the goals then of this, students will understand that all beings have an internal nature as well as an external form. Here in the States, we can't talk as openly as what you can in Belize about religion and faith, but we can talk about the spiritual element and the metaphysical element. So the effective level of the objectives of the lecture then in the chapter, they'll feel an internal nature that's more important, and they will distinguish between both those internal elements and be able to begin to chart some virtues. Part of the goal of this is looking at how we want to be able to see how young people can develop their overall skills and abilities, looking at not only the external goals of making money, friendship, good looks, nice home, but also understanding the importance of relationships, particularly in the family and at the school, being able to develop, and that includes the larger family of grandparents, aunts, and uncles. So this is one of the charts. Then we ask the young people to work on, to be able to, again, help find their identity, because if they know who they are, they know who their roots. And what I find a lot when I'm working in the Caribbean and Central America is a lot of young people and a lot of people in general just feel like, well, if I just go to the States, I'll be successful and I'll be happy. But that's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of people from developing countries here that have challenged because they've lost their whole family values. So then another part of another chapter in this book 9 goes into a process of growth, of formation, growth, and completion, being able to help them see that they have to grow externally, which is very easy to figure out, but their internal growth is really important. And that if they do service programs and service projects, they can grow that and be able to become more responsible. We focus on altruism as the virtue of virtues, to be able to help them understand more who they are and then what they can become. So then within this, the cognitive views, our students will recognize internal growth and be able to understand that they are connected to a larger process. The effective goals, they will want to achieve a satisfying level of altruistic or unconditional love, unselfish love. And then the behavioral goals, they will recount real life incidences of taking responsibility and write a letter of taking responsibility. And this is one big element within character education that we really emphasize, particularly in the middle school level and the high school level, because I see a lot in society where young people come out of school and go into college and they don't know who they are. They don't know where they want to, what they want to do. And interesting enough, what I find in Belize, I find young people having to work at a younger age and raise other younger children. So they become responsible at a much younger age, which is very healthy. So the reflection exercises, then they can write an apology letter to someone who they've wronged and be able to understand that when you apologize to someone, it's as much for you as it is for the other person. The other chapter that I want to mention just briefly in closing is freedom and responsibility. It's limited by natural law, but if we're overly self-indulgent, then we suffer physically and mentally. And real freedom then comes with responsibility. So we can't just do whatever we want to do. And one of the challenges here in the States is that some people believe, yeah, I can do whatever I like, and that's okay. But we want to be able to help them understand to be more responsible on many different levels. We discuss in this chapter the difference between freedom and license. No, you can't just do whatever you like because freedom is very much connected to responsibility. The effective objectives then is there are students will develop the desire to again mature and be responsible to be able to achieve real true freedom. And then they'll describe a completely free society. What does that look like? They'll give examples how freedom and responsibility are linked, and distinguish between freedom and license to do whatever they like. So there's all kinds of exercises we go into there, just asking them what they want to do. And a large part of character education is trying to get them to think through how they have learned. So I will leave it off there. As we go into the Q&A session, you can think about what we're doing. I know Carmen Gomez would like to hear from some of the teachers of maybe how some of these programs are working at Trinity or maybe at some of the other schools. So that is one of the issues. Thank you very much, Dr. Winings. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, we have a few minutes for questions and answers. I've been monitoring the chat line. There have been no questions yet. Let me see if you've raised your hand. Again, you raise your hand by going to the reaction button at the bottom of your screen. And it tells you to you can click on raise your hand. So if you have a question or comment, now is the time. Oh, okay, great. Carmen, go ahead.
Unmute. You have to
You're
unmute.
muted, Carmen. There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
I would like to ask a question to Dalia or Andrea or Mr. Campbell, any one of them. And since they started to implement character education in their school, I want to know if they have seen any good response from the children in their behavior, some changes or something that they can say something from what they have been doing so far. If they could tell me anything about that.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, you know, I deal with the major problems, and just a second. I deal with major problems, and what I've noticed that or major behavior like fighting, things like stealing has been at a minimum for us over this 2-year span. But what I more appreciate is the truthfulness that I'm getting from students. Students will come and be straightforward and truthful, even if they are in the wrong, if they made a mistake, if they did something out of line, they will say it to me. And so I think that can be equated to this character education being implemented at our school. Definitely owning up to their fault and taking responsibility, I must say, that I've seen becoming a norm. When I pull students in, they'll tell you, this is what I did, this is what happened, and be honest with it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Andrea, Dahlia, do you have any examples you can share How about
Good
that?
Good afternoon. What I have noticed in my class is the way my students treat each other. They are kinder. Especially after we did a lesson on being kind to others. I had drawn that illustration in one of our previous meetings that the child, you know, the child decided that she will show this new student kindness even when some of the other little boys were not being too kind. And I felt, or I believe, that had to do with the lesson that we had just did. And so I see where they are making improvements in their behavior towards each other. They are showing a little more respect and a little more empathy towards each other. I have a student who has been out for a week. He's been ill, and I only recently learned from the parent that he was in fact ill. And so I said to my students, what can we do to make our little classmate feel loved or feel that he's missed? And some of them said we could make him a card, you know, and they all decided. I gave them the paper, and they all made the cards. One of them even included a little dollar in the card. And so I took a picture and I sent it to the dad, and he felt so happy, you know, to know that that his son is autistic, and he's the only autistic child in that class. And the students treat him the same. They treat him just as how they treat everybody else. There are no special treatment given to him by them, but they decided that they will show him that they miss him by sending him a card. And I feel that this has to do with the lessons that we are imparting to these students in the character education.
Thank you, Dahlia.
Thank you.
Andrea, do you have anything to add?
I think they did justice to that. So, because I was just going to reinforce some of what Miss Dahlia said. So, along that line, no? Thanks.
Good, good. Any other questions? Danette, you asked about the book series, if it's based on book series, Mr. Saunders' comments and other previous comments. When he's talking about the Discovering the Real Me, is a set of different textbooks that can be used in character education. It's a paperback series. Also, earlier presentation by Poppy Ritchie also addressed one of those book volumes as well.
Where can I, thank you so much for responding. Where can I get that book?
Mr. Saunders?
Yeah, hi. It's on the UPF International website. I'll put it in the chat for you, Danette.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm searching the grounds. Any other questions? Okay. This allows us to go to our second group discussion session a couple of minutes early. So again, our group discussion session is similar to the first one, where you know, it's an opportunity to continue any thoughts you wanted to share about the presentations now given in both sessions, challenges in particular that you are experiencing or witnessing or noting in your school or classroom, and more importantly, action steps. As we draw this program to a today's program to a close, we want to think about action steps and how to move this forward. Webinars are nice. However, the power of a webinar is when we leave with at least one takeaway. Our hope is that each of you leaves this session, this program today with at least one powerful takeaway when it comes to implementing character education program curricula in your own classroom or school. And that's what, at least one. We'd love to see you take many more away. All right, so please join. Welcome back, everyone. As we begin to tie up our webinar today, I would first of all like to ask the different groups if someone would be able to, either the group facilitator or, unless you designate someone, offer a brief summary of some of the things that you discussed. Okay, I'll start with Isaac. You got? Can you give us a summary of your group?
Yeah, sure. It was excellent to spend time with the teachers. Very inspirational, talking very practical and strategic things. Also, we narrowed it down to just one. What is the secret to always being successful in the classroom? And we thought that it came down. And then we could, sorry, that was a joke, guys. There's no secret. It just takes hard work and continuous investment and being inspired. But it was great to spend time together and to share ideas. And clearly, character education is very valuable. It has high impact. And our site, by the way, I wanted to volunteer. I'll put in the chat my email address, but valuesandvirtues.org is something that's continually growing. So if you have stories to share, that would be a great addition in any of the virtues. Please share. We can put them in there. If you're writing a book, we can put it in there. It's that amazing and that organic, and it's something we want to keep growing and to keep kids inspired about. So I'll put it in the chat room, my email address, but I thank all the teachers that I got to spend time with in our chat room. Thank you so much for sharing, guys.
Poppy, what about you?
Well, we had some lively discussions, and I really enjoyed spending time with teachers. We have so much in common. Some of the things we shared about were strategies to get kids to talk in small group settings. And one of our teachers, Alice Jackson Young, who is nicknamed Alice in Wonderland, because she has a little mailbox and kids can submit their requests or concerns, and then she meets with them.
Really?
They talk about the situation. So I love that. That was really cool.
I love it too.
Dealing with a difficult student was another topic. And one of the teachers said that she asked one of the kids that was having a challenging day or challenging time in class what he wanted to do, and he said play. So she took him outside and played with him, but he was the only one out there, and he said, well, where's everybody else? And she said, well, they're working. Can I go back inside? So I think that's, it's so much fun to learn from one another. And another insight that I got is I learned a little bit about Belize that I didn't know, and I'm interested in learning more about the culture there. And so that was something that I gained and I learned from the people from Andrea especially. So it was just a great opportunity to share with one another. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. In my group, I had Jamal. We were at this point administrators, so we talked about this, and he talked about the idea, the challenge of course, encouraging teachers in order to come to sessions, meetings, and to stick with this thing. He talked about the desire to have more copies of Discovering the Real Me. But another one that we really got onto was the issue of making certain topics and issues and virtues the focus of the whole school, doing a whole school approach, which I really encourage because I've seen the power of that myself in several elementary schools in particular, where they made certain issues and virtues part of the whole school. So that was great in our discussion. And I'm watching Danette. I'm watching you, Danette, because are these things that resources you have created? I see all these resources that you're posting up. So if you created them, they look wonderful. I bet they do well in your classroom. Alan, you want to share about your group?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Winings. Yeah, our group, we had a lot of interesting discussion. I was meeting with some of the Japanese volunteers from Women's Federation. If you ever go down to Belize, Mrs. Yanai has a wonderful restaurant. Some of the best sushi I've tasted in Central South America, wonderful family. Her son and daughter have supported our workshops with the technical work and all the logistics. And Carmen actually spoke about an interesting element. She's Spanish but lives in Japan, and she talked about all the character education they do in the schools in Japan. The children actually go to the lunchroom to get all the food. They bring it back, and then they clean the school. And they do also a lot of projects. I know they do gardening and all kinds of projects, which are all communal service type programs in the school and outside of the school. So there's a lot of character building that can be done there. So yeah, that was our sharing. And then Shun Hasabe is a volunteer out in the ocean side of North Carolina, and he's going to work with some of the after school programs here in the States in the Boys and Girls Club. And a lot of times it can be in the classroom or it can be in those types of after school programs that are usually looking for educational materials. So yeah, that was our room. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who attended today, contributed in the small groups. This is an ongoing dynamic story. It's not static. And this is a program that can continually grow and develop because of teachers and administrators. We have put out a call for sure for local stories that makes the program and the materials that we put online and where Isaac showed you, that makes that much more real when they are local. The few of us that work with this don't live in every country. And so we really need resources to share with people so that they can make use of them in their classroom. Second, we recently sent out what's called a needs assessment survey to teachers, administrators. If you did not get one, please let us know, because this gives us information of how to improve the materials. The website is very organic, and it has the opportunity of being a great resource for teachers and administrators and parents as well. So that is our commitment in the Principled Academy Initiative and all that we're doing. So please respond to that and get us into it. Be as honest as you can to help us with that. And finally, I again like to say thank you to the Women's Federation for World Peace and the Japanese women who have been working so hard to gain the funding that makes this program as well as today's meeting possible. So thank you to them and keep them in your thoughts as well.